I'm here with Danny Camacho, a very dear friend of mine who I met many years ago. I don't remember how many years, but quite a few. And I really appreciate you being here, Danny. You know, yours is such a personal story.
Hey, I'm so honored and privileged to be among so many giants.
well, we're going to show who the real giant is here. You know, I ask people when you ask people for something, you always get a varying degree of compliance, right? I asked some people, would you send me
Yes,
5 questions so I could ask you 5 questions just to make sure I touch on the things and I don't forget, or Matthew when he was doing the interviews. So we just don't forget to bring up an important item. And some people forgot entirely. That's understandable. I forget
right,
everything. Some people sent us, I'll just talk about my business or my agency. It's like, okay. Um, and you
right,
sent
yeah, of course.
an absolutely beautiful story. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like you to tell us your story because your life story is the kind that great novels are made out of. It's got tragedy, it's got complexity, it's got difficulty, it's got triumph, you know, and
Yeah,
incredible triumph. Um, and your story started when you were young. So do you want to go back
young,
that far for me?
yeah, I was really young, and but, when I wrote you the thing, it was like I don't have a can where I could pull out all these questions, but I do have life experience that I think is impactful and significant. My life experiences are that I grew up in Chicago. My father was extremely abusive man, and my response to that was to just behaviorally act out and cause more abuse, which I didn't get. I was a kid, it was my response. It was the way I dealt with it, and so through that process, I eventually discovered chemicals, alcohol, marijuana, drugs, and it kind of hit a spot with me. It kind of touched something in me. It gave me an opportunity to loneliness on a daily basis as a young boy, and it just kind of progressed in my life and carried over into my teenage years and boys' school and uh, eventually adulthood and uh, resulting in me at 20 being homeless, living on the streets and trying to survive and not really knowing what I was doing and just running to the drugs and the alcohol and
Can I ask you a
just
quick question? Can I
yeah,
just interrupt?
absolutely.
So, you know, most people, a lot of people care. Most people don't get an opportunity to talk to the guy they see on the street. So you're
Yeah,
giving them this opportunity, even though they have to go back in time to do it.
yeah,
When you were 20 and you were self medicating and you were using substances to deal with the fact that you had this childhood and these other problems and that you complicated them by negative behavior. When
yeah.
you found yourself homeless, when you found out I'm not going home tonight or tomorrow night. What were you thinking? What were you feeling about it? Can you remember?
Um, Vaguely. What I do remember is that for some reason I knew that the drugs and alcohol were there to comfort me. It was like something inside of me that just said, "Well, you got this. You can go to this, and this will make it okay. This will make it not so bad." And so it was kind of my teddy bear, you know. And I was able to embrace it until it started strangling me.
Yeah. And when was that? When did you start
But
having?
in my 20s, I was living in East Chicago, Indiana, and in and out of jail, just little petty little stuff, and just at some point in that process, I realized I got a serious problem, and I don't know what to do about it.
Were you scared?
I was, I felt powerless, and I felt like nobody really cared. I felt
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter. People don't care. And, so just keep doing what you're doing, and, go as long as you can. And eventually at some point it will all end.
Yeah. And it would have ended maybe very prematurely if what happened in your life that gave you an option away from that? Hmm. Yeah, we dropped your signal a little. So you froze up at the point where you were saying what changed for you that got you away from that in and out of jail using.
I think it was when I had uh, gotten married, and I was living homeless. We got married in San Diego, California, living on the streets in Balboa Park. Uh, and we came back to Indianapolis where her family was, and we're living with her family, and my wife got pregnant, and when my oldest daughter was born, it kind of had some kind of a jolting kind of a thing with me. It kind of jolted me to now you're responsible for another human being. There's somebody else, and they're innocent, and so it kind of got my attention. It took a minute for me to do the right thing and get myself in the right position and stuff. But I think that was the turning point in the whole process, was when my oldest daughter was born.
So
That
were
was
you?
in '86, and then in '89 is when in Louisville, Kentucky, I decided I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore, and I got into recovery. And like I told you in the thing, I started volunteering at a sobering up station. It was a social model detox. It was experimental at that time. They had got funded, and I went there and volunteered every day. Every day I said, what can I do to help? And it was just because I didn't want to focus on all this stuff going on up here. And I needed to direct myself and put myself in a position where I wasn't thinking about. So they had me mopping floors and cleaning toilets and making beds. And in between all that, I would sit on the edge of the bed and start talking to these guys. And for some reason, something got ignited in my soul. It was like it was a connection. I found my purpose, my reason for being. And it was probably a month or more later that Mary, the lady that was running the program, director, called me up to her office. I thought, okay, here it goes. I did something wrong, And she's like, you know what, Camacho? She says, you are more dedicated, you are more committed than most of my staff. And she said, do you want a job?
Wow.
I said, yeah, I'll take a job. I need a job. I'll take the job. And so that's where it started for me.
So when you first got into recovery, was that tough? Was it easy to find a program? Did you do it by yourself?
No, not by myself. I got into a 12-step program. I connected with some people. I was, in the right place at the right time. Higher power was at work in my life when I wasn't even aware, and connected me with very powerfully significant people that had impact on me, and I looked at it in a way that was very parental.
Had you gotten to had you lost things that you needed for quote unquote no ordinary life? Did you still have a driver's license? Had you gone through any of the?
I never learned how to drive till I was in my 30s, Pat. In Chicago, you don't need a driver's license. you get on the bus and you get on the train and you go and do. So I never needed. I eventually had to go to driving school to learn how to drive and get a license, just like a teenager would, and all that kind of stuff. And so I kind of grew up in my 30s. I started growing up at that point in my life. And I was just kind of learning and using a lot of men in the program and women in the program as mother and father figures.
Huh, that's interesting. Now, they were people who were like sponsors or?
Yeah, just respected members of the recovering community that had established themselves, had some experience in recovery, had dealt with some struggles and overcome some things through the principles of working the steps and all that stuff. And so they were able to give me some guidance and direction, and I was able to allow myself to receive that.
Yeah.
For a long time, people would say, you need to do this and you need to do that and you better do this. And I just couldn't get it that way. These people embraced me. And they connected with me on a deep level, and they tolerated some inappropriateness from me and continued to offer me guidance and direction without judging me.
Yeah. So now I'm sure it's been decades.
Been a long time.
Yeah. So you've had the opportunity to be that father figure to other people. You've had that opportunity to mentor other folks who are trying to get into recovery and want to make sure they always have a relationship with their newborn or whatever their driving force is. What is that like?
It's very I always tell myself, there's people that are out there doing a lot of things, and when I said giants, you guys are out there in the world, and you're going at it, and here I am like a little kid walking down the seashore, just picking up starfish and throwing them back in the water. I feel that way. It's like I individualize things, I personalize things, I embrace these men and people that I come in contact with, and I connect with them. I said, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he says, what is it like working with the homeless and helping? And I said, here's the thing, when all you got is your name, that's all you got is your name. Calling somebody by their name makes a huge difference, because that's all they got. And I said, so that's how I started, was just talking to people like they were people and connecting with them and saying, hey, Bill, how you doing? Hey, Bob. And it allowed me to have a connection with these people in a way that I never had connections with people before. I did outreach, Pat, for a lot of years. I worked at Horizon House here in Indianapolis as a case manager. And guess what? All I got is a GED. I was a program director for Hoosier Veterans Assistance Foundation. I ran a recovery program for homeless veterans that required a master's degree, and they gave me the job.
You got a master's in life.
I got a master's in something, and throwing starfish back in the water.
Well, that's the way I feel about life too, though, is, you try. We just interviewed Don and Tim about Under the Bridge and Beyond the Bridge. And they're.
I've seen Don and Tim, and I know them, and I know their work, and I've connected with Don. And
they've made a film about you, I think.
I don't know.
Did I see you in one of them? But,
you may have seen somewhere in something. I don't know. I try to avoid a lot of that stuff,
They are trying to run the bulldozer to shovel all the starfish back in if they can, and that's the kind of media outreach that we all need. Is that, like they said, to tell the story. But when you're working in shelters or like I have, and you're working with people who you meet every single one of them you meet on the worst day of their life.
Yeah.
then if you couldn't throw one starfish back every now and then, you couldn't keep doing it.
No. And
You know,
it's not like, you immediately are able to lift that starfish. You have to establish trust with people. You have to establish and allow them their dignity and respect, and and so they can connect with you and know that you're real. You know, and so it takes time to build relationships. And I've allowed myself to give people that time because they deserve it.
Yeah.
They deserve it. They deserve it. Here, one thing I do want to say is this, Pat. I lost my daughter to addiction, 2014. And so the struggle with the wanting it so bad for somebody, and going to whatever lengths that you can possibly go to try to get that person, and sometimes, it's just not there, and so the significance of what Sandy was talking about earlier about the Rubin Engagement Center being shut down with we got the pandemic, and then we got the opioid epidemic, and they've kind of merged upon each other and exposed a lot of lives and put them at risk. And the city is responsible for that.
Mm-hmm.
The city of Indianapolis is responsible for that. And, I think that they really need to step up and do the right thing. I heard you talking about promises earlier and how they get intoxicated and drunk on their promises, and then they relapse into, indifference or whatever, and it's like, honest to God, it's like a Dr. Seuss book gone bad.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really remarkable because I've been in a lot of municipalities where, the ruling elite won't even take your phone call. The local news won't cover the story. But that's not Indianapolis. Indianapolis, the ruling elite wants to pretend that they're on your side.
Yeah. Put circus of clowns. It's just a circus of clowns. They get out there and parade around, and and then when it comes time to put up, it's like, we can't do that.
Indianapolis is a unique place too, though, because you do have, what was the crazy story from 10 years ago or something where Indianapolis made this huge investment in a cricket field or something, right? To play cricket or one of those British ball games. And so Indianapolis invested millions and millions of dollars to build a cricket field to lure, I guess, the cricket business. And then they turn around, and after this huge development, then they can't see the logic in keeping the Rubin Engagement Center open, so that people who have reached the end of their rope and realize they need some help have a place to go.
Well, maybe we need to tell them that all these people are cricket farmers.
That's a great idea.
It's hell. They're shooting it at us. We might as well shoot back.
That's right. The park is laughing. You can't hear it, but you've got a crowd of people listening live behind me that are.
Well, hey, I love you all. Whoever's laughing, I love you. But it's a sad truth, right?
Mm-hmm. It is a sad truth. And, and I remember my other favorite story from this whole thing was I wrote a Huffington Post article about TikTok time's running out for Indianapolis. They're making all these promises.
I remember that.
Then they're just plowing under the homeless camps. Sandy was in the city county courthouse there. Indianapolis is weird. It's also the city and it's the county. So it has a city county courthouse because it's the same thing. But it's kind of like Australia being a country and a continent. But so she said she was standing there and somebody was talking about that guy, Pat LaMarche. Somebody's got to get to that guy, Pat LaMarche, and tell him to stop writing. And I'm like, if you can't do enough homework to find out that guy is a gal, You're not paying attention to the problem around you.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, that's really. But that says a lot about the politics of Indianapolis, and how they deal with things. They don't really get it, I don't think.
Well,
You know,
we'd like for them to no harm, no foul. Tomorrow, just fix it.
fix
Tomorrow,
it.
just reopen the Rubin Center. Tomorrow, just fix it. No, we're not trying to pick on you indefinitely and forever, and we're not here to bash you. There are just lives at stake, and there are people, there are people's children, their daughters, their sons, their fathers, their brothers, their sisters, who have true need. So
Yeah,
we don't want to pick on you. It is kind of fun, but just fix it.
yeah. And while they're not fixing it, people are falling down all over. They're falling away. They're going away from here. Young people, like Sandy said earlier, we got kids now in their teens and 20s, and with their whole life ahead of them, and we have an opportunity to bring them in and give them a chance to live out their lives and be contributing members of the community and stuff. And we're not willing to make that investment. Why?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the other sad thing about all this is Frederick Douglass said that one of the reasons he could read, he could pilot a ship, he was such a valuable piece of property to his owner, but still he let other poor white men beat him.
Yeah.
Because there always needs to be that one beneath you, and then you'll accept the lousy situation that you're in.
Right.
And so now we've got this thing where you look at the guy on the street who was you 35 years ago, and you say, well, he wants to be there.
No.
And if he's not doing, So answer that question, that when someone looks at a person like you were 35 years ago, tell them what that person really wants.
What they really want is to be acknowledged, to be connected to, and to be heard. I mean, you cannot assume to know somebody's pain. You can't assume to know somebody's struggle. You need to sit down and listen to their story. You need to hear their story and their struggles and their pain, and then respond appropriately. Respond from compassion. Respond from love, because it's your obligation as a member of the community, as a member of the planet. It's your obligation to reach out and extend yourself to them, because in some way, shape, or form, grace has been extended to you, and now it's your turn.
Yeah. No, I don't think anything could be more perfectly put than that, Danny. That's why you're hanging around with everybody, because you're the one who can put the words to it, man.
Well, Sandy calls me Gandhi. I don't. Well, she said you're a cross between Gandhi and Carlos Santana, and I take that humbly. I couldn't measure up.
That's kind of a perfect combination, actually.
It's a great combination, and Sandy loves to say it, but I do meet a lot of people, and I talk to everybody I meet. I connect with everybody I meet, no matter where I go, where I'm at, who I'm with. I'm always connecting with people, because that's our responsibility and obligation, is to look at people as people, connect with them, and respond to them in a correct and appropriate way.
Well, I'm humbly grateful that you connected with me.
I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah. And I pay attention to you because I know you're a baker, and I one day want to experience one of your pies.
Okay. Well, as soon as they let me travel around, sometimes I think COVID was invented by the people who don't want me hanging out. But but as soon as I can get back out there, I will be making you a pie. What kind of pie do you like?
I like peach pie, Pat.
Peach pie, that's my favorite, so it's all good.
Is it?
We'll be having peach pie. And Pennsylvania has the best peaches in the world.
Do they? Great.
Georgia, Pennsylvania peaches are unbelievable.
You know, I appreciate so much that you allowed me to come on here and share a little bit and talk and just, you know, kind of connect in a way that I think is important. Just because, you know, we all have an opportunity to be a voice for somebody that's voiceless,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's the reason why, you know, through the discomfort and the anxiety of being on here and just not really being my forte, that it's my obligation and my responsibility to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, to be seen for those people that have been made invisible by our society and by the community at large, you know, to, you know, make them visible. Let's do this.
Well, you did a beautiful job, and I can't thank you enough for joining me, and we'll just have to do it again.
I love you.
I love you
Promise.
too. I promise.
Be
We'll see
good.
you soon. Bye-bye.
Stay cool.
Yeah, okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.